Chair now recognizes Ms. Cherfilus-McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to first start off by saying thank you so much for your courage, your testimony, and your service. More importantly, our focus is to get this right. We are dedicated to ensuring that you're supported, and the next time around that we hear your testimony, that we can actually move forward. And with that being said, I have a question for Mr. Lucia. Tell us about your experience helping American citizens to evacuate. In particular, what were the challenges and what worked well?
Thank you, Congresswoman. Yeah, happy to talk about that. So at Team America, as I said earlier, either friends and family of American citizens who are in Afghanistan or those who are there themselves identified themselves to us. And then our goal was to, do kind of a pre-verification on that data, make sure that they actually were blue passport holders in whatever ways we could, and then coordinate with government entities on the ground at the time in order to try and arrange for their safe passage to the airport, and then offer some guidance and the best intelligence and information available at the time to help them make that trip safely from their homes and apartments in Kabul to the gates, and have that coordinated ahead of time so that they could swiftly move through. It was a difficult process when you have folks self-identifying because of the lack of identification ahead of time, where they're not required to register with the STEP program. Lots of information was coming in very quickly. That was one of the challenges. Many folks self-identified as American citizens who weren't, in fact, not, because they thought it would get them through the gates faster. So having to kind of adjudicate that for 220 volunteers who had no experience adjudicating immigration paperwork was difficult and required a lot of oversight, cooperation. We had a relatively good amount of success and felt it wasn't perfect, but for the situation that was there, getting American citizens through the gate, my experience was that typically if we found the right person and were able to identify somebody and were able to kind of prove out that blue passport holder, usually heaven and earth would move. I think, like I said, we had 88 American citizens who identified who we were able to verify. At the end of the NEO process, only 4 were remaining, and all 4 had self-selected to remain. They had been offered multiple times that U.S. Special Forces and other types of operators would go out into the city to get them, but because they had extended family members who they could not bring with them, we call it a refusal to separate from those extended family members, they chose to remain in Afghanistan. That was my experience, and that's what occurred with Team America. I know that there are other stories, but that was mine, and really quickly I'd like to talk about the story of one of those folks. At Team America, we have people assigned case numbers, but we called her Afghan Betty White. She was a grandmother, and she was with her grandchildren and other folks and nieces, and one attempt was made, I believe, to actually get to her, and then 2 more times she was offered that assistance, but she chose to remain. The Taliban knocked at her door. She yelled back at them, but Afghan Betty White also had diabetes, and she was unable to access her medication while she was there. We knew that. We urged her to leave, but she did not want to leave her family. But the opportunity was available, but she chose to stay, and it was a courageous act. Unfortunately, in December of 2021, because she did not have that access, she passed away. It was a tough moment and a tough day for Team America. We had all talked to her, and so it was hard for us, for somebody that we knew who was eligible to leave, but who chose not to and who made that courageous choice and ultimately, in a way, kind of gave her life for her family. So the process with American citizens was incredibly difficult. It was hard. We had to learn a little bit on the fly, but generally the cooperation with government on American citizens and with ACS, American Citizen Services at State, for us at least, maybe we were just lucky, was very good.
Ms. Meckler, beyond an immigration pathway into the United States, what do you see as other necessary lines of efforts in terms of diplomatic engagement, humanitarian or economic assistance, multilateral work with partner countries or areas to ensure we are helping vulnerable Afghanistans and defending the U.S. interest and values in respect to Afghanistan?
I think the answer when we talk about immigration is always going to be that we should allow people who want to come and people who want to stay home to stay home. I know that our Afghan partners have spoken a lot about not supporting sanctions or other ways that reduce the Afghan economy because they are really suffering right now economically. And so continuing to support them, continuing to fight, especially for women and girls, but for all Afghans, continuing to allow them to live with dignity and, without the starvation or the poverty or the disease that we're seeing right now are all efforts that we should be looking into, and then supporting our allies. I mean, not everyone wants to live in the United States either, and allowing them the choice of migration and not having it be by force.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
The gentlelady yields. The chair now recognizes Mr.